First appointment, clinical protocols. There are three routes for record taking. The first one is stone models and wax trims. The advantages is this is a technique that everybody is familiar with, however it's very time consuming and it means that you have to take extra steps and extra appointments to make it. Second way of doing it could be with the DENTCA trays. The DENTCA trays give you the advantage that you can shorten the number of appointments that you need to make and you can get all the records in one first appointment. The disadvantages are that there's a slightly higher learning curve for the doctors, but don't worry, we're going to give you all the steps and all the understanding you need in order to successfully use the trays on this video. Lastly, if you have an intraoral scanner, the easiest way to get records for your DENTCA dentures is to just take a wash on your existing denture and then scan it with your intraoral scanner. We're going to give you a great video about how to do that. The advantages are that it's a very short appointment. There's no scanning lab necessary, so you don't have to send anything at the lab. You can give the patient their denture back right away. The disadvantages is that if your intraoral scanner is too old or you're not familiar with scanning full arches, you could get holes or steps on the patching process when you're scanning the intaglio of the denture. So you have to be really familiar with how to use the intraoral scanner in order to use this technique. To take impressions with the DENTCA trays, you need to acquire them first through the DENTCA website. The impression trays come in 4 different sizes and they can be mix and match between colors if necessary. These are also thermoplastic and they can be modified in an open flame if necessary, just in case you don't want the posterior phalanges to hit on the tuberosities, for example. So these trays can be acquired individually for complete dentures, or you can also acquire the single arch trays for when you're doing single arch cases. There's also easy tracers, which is going to allow you to do your CR tracing. There's an upper lip ruler for when you're doing an upper denture and you need your upper lip length, and there's also a jaw gauge which will allow you to measure vertical dimension. As I mentioned before, these can be acquired individually, or you can acquire everything in what we call a starter kit, which will contain everything you need to do your cases. It comes with 2 trays of each size, which will be enough for you to do 8 to 10 cases. While all cases are doable with the DENTCA tray system, it's recommended that you start with a simple case to avoid having a headache and a bad experience on your first DENTCA tray case. So what we recommend is that you try to find a class 1 patient with sufficient ridges and not a lot of flabby tissue, that they're coherent and lucid so they can follow your instructions. And of course, try to start with a complete case before moving to a single arch case. To help you with this process, we do have an impression manual that can come with your DENTCA starter kit, or you can also download it online. So this manual is actually going to take you step by step on all the steps that I'm going to describe in this video if you want to reference back to it. Again, this can be found on dentca.com by going to the resources section and then going to the manual. Besides the aforementioned DENTCA starter kit, you will also need heavy body and light body injected PVS, bite registration material, a surgical blade number 10 or number 15, and you need a tapered and or round burr with a slow speed handpiece. Also, if you're doing a single arch, you're going to need a stone model of the opposing dentition. Impressions with the DENTCA trays can be done in a few simple steps. The first step would be to find the correct trays. In order to do this, match the borders of your patient's denture to the borders of the tray as shown in the picture. If your patient does not have an existing denture, try the trays into the mouth, trying to find a space of 1 to 2 millimeters between the borders and the sides of the tray. If unsure between sizes, always choose the smaller of the two. Fill out the space of the tray with heavy body injected PVS in the entire surface and seat it in the mouth to begin the border molding process. When seating it in the mouth, make sure to apply enough pressure so the tray is evenly seated before beginning border molding. Once polymerized, look at your tray. If you find any areas of tray show through, relieve these with a slow speed handpiece and an acrylic burr. This will make our custom tray. Apply a thin layer of light body PVS in the entirety of the surface and seat it back in the patient mouth to create our final impression. Only a small amount is necessary. Make sure you apply a lot of pressure when you seat the tray back into the mouth to ensure there's no thickness in your final impression. After boarding molding, remove it out of the mouth and repeat the same steps with the lower. Analyze your impressions, make sure there are no bubbles, no steps, and no tray show-through. When done, you should have two impressions that look like this. If you're doing implant over denture cases, make sure the locator attachments are in place before taking the impression. Follow the same procedure as we described, making sure to relieve the areas where the locators are before you do the light body wash. Once done, take a scalpel blade number 15 or number 10 and start cutting through the impression material by following the shape of the tray to be able to separate the posterior junction from the DENTCA trays. This is done in order to be able to do the CR tracing and the vertical dimension measurements and the next steps. When cleaning the lower tray, make sure you relieve the lingual notches so the central bearing pin can be attached freely. Once done, proceed to remove the two posterior attachments from the lower tray. There are several ways to recording vertical dimension with the DENTCA trace. The easiest one would be to place the trace in the mouth and then adjust the central bearing pin by moving it counterclockwise until the patient's lips barely touch each other at rest. Normally this would be your vertical dimension of rest. However, since the impression material is pushing the lips outward, by the time they touch, it's actually vertical dimension of occlusion. Just for your reference, each full turn of the pin equals 1 millimeter of closure in the mouth. So if you want to close vertical by 3 millimeters, for example, you need to do 3 full turns on the pin. If you would like to take vertical dimensions via traditional method instead, you can either take your measurements for VDR and VDO the normal way, or you can use the DENTCA jaw gauge. The DENTCA jaw gauge can be assembled by placing the chin portion on the ruler and rest it under the nose and on the chin. Simply look at the number in front of you, trying not to apply too much pressure on the patient's chin. Once that is done, simply apply those adjustments into the DENTCA trace. If you find yourself at a point where you want to lower the pin to keep closing vertical but you can't close it anymore, just write down how much you want to close it by and DENTCA can close it for you. One very important thing is that you make sure that the trays, upper and lower, are not touching in the posterior section when you set it to the correct VD. This because if the trays are touching when you're doing your CR tracing, which is the next step, you will get an open bite during your trying appointment. Additionally, the lower portion of the pin can be snapped off in case you have to lower it too much so it doesn't hurt the patient's tongue. Lastly, it's very important that you do not throw the posterior attachments away. In a messy operatory, these can look like trash and the assistants can throw it away. Without these posterior attachments, there will be no way to design your case. Once you're done setting your trace at the correct vertical dimension, take the easy tracer and remove the yellow part in order to be able to attach it to the upper tray. Make sure the red section is sticking beyond the tray whenever you're using a medium, orange, or white small tray. Take the trace back into the patient's mouth and ask him to softly make protrusive and retrusive movements, as well as lateral movements whenever at the most posterior position. This will create a very precise arrow at which center you're going to find your CR point. Once you find your CR point, take an acrylic burr and drill a little notch. In order to make this easier, you can remove the clear plastic part. At some point it's better to tear it out so you can have a color difference when you're taking your bite. Once finished, place the trays back into the patient's mouth and ask him to make movements so the head of the pin can lock into the dimple you created. Then proceed to take a bite. While holding the lower tray, inject bite registration material between both trays. In the end, you should obtain an impression sandwich that looks like the right picture. It's very important that while you're injecting the PVS, you're holding the lower tray, otherwise you're going to obtain an open bite during your trying stage. When done, evaluate your impression to make sure everything is symmetrical. You want to be looking for areas of separated bite registration material. If this happens, the bite needs to be retaken. It means that the patient bit too hard and the tray bent during the bite registration process. It's also important to ensure that the patient did not move and the pin did not separate from the indentation you created. Lastly, evaluate the rest of your impression to ensure that you have proper borders, that the tray is not showing through in any of the parts of your impression, that you have the posterior attachments ready, that you have good parallelism between the upper and the lower and they're not tilted, and also ensure that the upper and lower tray are not hitting one another in any of the portions. If you are making an upper denture, it will be necessary for you to take a measurement with the DENTCA lip ruler, which will be resting in the incisive papilla. Simply place the DENTCA lip ruler on the incisive papilla and let the lip fall through gravity and at rest. Then write down the measurement you see in front of you. So what about single arch impressions? The process for making a single arch is the same for the edentulous arch. You have to follow all the steps that we previously described in order to make your impression records. However, since you have a dentate portion, one of the single arch plates needs to be used as shown in the image below. To utilize the DENTCA tray single arch attachments, simply fill them out with bite registration material and seat it on the patient's dentate arch. Then proceed to do the same vertical dimension and CR tracing methods as described in the previous part of the chapter. Then proceed to take a bite. Also, always make sure that you're including a stone model of the opposing dentition with your case whenever you send it to DENTCA. An incredible alternative to the DENTCA trays if you have an intraoral scanner is to do what we call a copy denture, which is essentially taking the patient's existing denture and performing a wash with it and then scanning it with the intraoral scanner. First step is a denture wash. To perform a copy denture impression technique, take the patient's existing dentures and fill the borders with heavy body PVS. Then seat it in the patient's mouth and border mold. Once finished, apply a thin layer of light body PVS on the entire surface of the dentures intaglio. Please note that only a small layer is necessary for this process. When finished, seat the denture back into the patient's mouth and apply enough pressure so it seats all the way before starting the border molding process. Step number 2 is denture scanning. Once done, carefully expose the teeth portion of the denture with a scalpel blade to peel off the impression material. This will be necessary so we can scan the teeth portion and then be able to match it during the design stage. Scan the intaglio of the denture, making sure you extend all the way to the teeth borders. Finally, scan the bite, and in the case of single arches, also scan the opposing dentition. Place the dentures back into the patient's mouth and scan the bite. If doing a single arch, always ensure to also scan the opposing dentition. Immediate dentures can also be done in a very simple way utilizing the intraoral scanner. In order to do this, scan the upper arch, then the lower arch, and a reproducible bite. The reason we can actually do this with the intraoral scanner is because we're not that concerned about the border molding with immediate dentures, since they're going to be realigned anyways. Otherwise, it would be difficult to capture these movements as the scanner cannot record border molding movements. If you don't have an intraoral scanner, you can always submit upper and lower stone models with a PVS bite. Once you're done with your records, proceed to select your shades utilizing the DENTCA 3D Printable Shade Guide. Shades available right now are A1, A2, A3, A3.5, B1, and B2 for teeth material, and light pink, reddish pink, original, and dark pink for gum material. Once all the records have been taken, the first appointment is done, and the dentist will now need to place an order in order to request a denture. DENTCA can work with you in 3 different models. The first model is what we call complete, where DENTCA will design and manufacture 3D printable dentures for you. These can be ordered at dentca.com. The second is design only, where DENTCA will design for a laboratory or a dental office, and then the office or laboratory will 3D print and manufacture the final dentures. These can also be ordered at dentca.com. Lastly, DENTCA also offers a model where you can design utilizing the DENTCA design software and then manufacture yourself. Orders for DENTCA designs can be done at dentcadesign.com, and order for the materials can be done at dentca.com. Right now, let's focus on how to place an order for a complete service done by DENTCA. First step is to visit dentca.com and create an account. In order to create an account, click on the sign up button. There are 2 types of account that can be created on the DENTCA website. First one is an individual account, which is aimed for doctors and laboratories who only need 1 account to work or order with DENTCA. The second type of account that you can create is called a corporate account, which is meant for hospitals, schools, and big laboratories that need several sub-accounts under their main account. This is also very helpful for DSOs who have centralized billing. For an individual account, all you have to do is fill out the information requested on the sign-up page, such as email, password, the doctor's name or the lab's name, and the doctor's license or the lab's EIN. If you're not creating a corporate account or not linking a sub-account to a corporate account, please leave these sections blank and continue by clicking on Sign Up. If instead you're creating a corporate account, then please click at the bottom where it says Corporate Account choose your company's ID. This will be the ID you choose for your company. Example, I would place DENTCA Inc. on company name and perhaps just DENTCA on their company ID. Then select the admin's email and admin's password and create a checkout password. The checkout password will be used to link sub-accounts, or in the case of post-billing, also to be used to check out your cases instead of having to enter a credit card. Enter your billing address, select the billing type, which we recommend either post-bill or individuals. Please note that post-bill needs to be pre-approved by DENTCA before actually being able to be used. And then the type of shipping you would like to use. For individual shipping, we have two options. One is where DENTCA provides you the shipping labels and they charge you shipping for all trips from DENTCA to you and from you to DENTCA. And then an option where DENTCA does not provide you labels and DENTCA does not charge you for shipping from you to us, and then you're responsible for paying and creating your own labels whenever you're shipping something to DENTCA. Then when you're done, click on sign up. It will then ask you if you want to create an individual account. Please say yes and create an individual account as well. Otherwise, you created a corporate account where billing is centralized but no account under it to be able to order. If you wish to create more sub-accounts after that, have the new person register for an individual account and then enter the company ID and company password or checkout password that you created. This will ensure that the new sub-accounts are connected to the main corporate account. After creating an account, the next step would be to log in. Go to the upper right section and click on login, then enter your username and password. Please note that this is your individual account username and password and not your company ID and checkout password. Once entered, click on login. Once logged in, you will be prompted to the denture ordering page. If you want to access this denture ordering page in the future, all you have to do is go to orders and then CAD/CAM dentures, and you can visit this particular page as well. In here you will be able to select different types of dentures depending on what product you would like to order. For this example, let's just select order on a 3D printed complete denture. Once you access this section, you will see several pieces of information that need to be entered in your prescription. The first part is an optional patient number. This portion you can fill out if you have a order number, for example if you're a lab, or if you have a patient chart number that you would like to enter over there. Then enter the patient initials and scroll down to select your patient gender. Then select whether you want to try in or skip and go direct to final. As a side note, DENTCA always recommends to try to go for a try in first. Then select your teeth shade, gum shade, and upper lip length. If you did not use the DENTCA trace to take an upper lip length, then just choose select none available or wax rim. Select the classification that you would like, and in this section enter the tray size that you used if you use the DENTCA trace. If you use a large tray, for example on the upper, and an extra large on the lower, always enter the largest of the two. If you did not use a DENTCA trace, simply select NA, or if you use wax rims, then select the wax rim option. Then select the mold shape. We have three shapes: universal, ovoid, and squared. Universal is square tapered. Then if you scanned any files and obtained the STLs, click on the upload scan sender CVCT option to upload your scan files at this point. Otherwise, select physical impressions will be mailed so you can get a shipping label at the end of the order. If you have any other instructions that you would like to place at this point, this would be the section to ask them. Like for example, please create a 1mm diastema between 8 and 9. Then make sure you click during byte registration, I stabilize the lower tray, and click on add to cart. On the next screen you will be able to review every item that you added to your cart, and then you will be able to add any coupon codes if you received any over here, and then click apply. Then enter your shipping and billing information, and then click continue to next step. In the next checkout screen you will be prompted to choose your shipping type. Please note that DENTCA has 3 shipping options for ground, 2-day, or priority overnight. If you are on the East Coast, it's recommended that you choose 2-day or priority overnight since DENTCA is located on the West Coast. Please note that the shipping fee that you will be charged will be a shipping fee for the entirety of the process. So for example, for a denture, we would be charging you on FedEx Ground $10 per trip. One for you to send us the impressions, another one for us to send you a drawing, then a third one for you to send the drawing back, and a fourth one for us to send you the final denture. If you don't want to be charged for shippings from you to us, you can select the option of using your own shipping. What this will do is will cut the fee in half, and then you will be responsible for shipping cases from you to us using your preferred provider. Please note that if you use your own shipping, DENTCA will not provide you any labels for you to ship cases from you to us. Once you're ready, click on Next Step. In the final screen, you'll have an opportunity to review the entirety of your order and then enter your payment information. If you're part of a post-bill corporate account setting, then you will be prompted to enter a checkout password instead of the credit card information. Once you enter all the credit card information, then click I agree with terms and conditions and click on continue to next step. Once your order is finalized, you should see two brackets. The first one will allow you to print your order sheet. If you paid for DENTCA to handle your shipping, you will also have the option of printing a shipping label at this point. If you opted for DENTCA to help you with your shipping services, it will be necessary for you to schedule FedEx for a pickup. To do this, place all the items you want to ship in a box, seal the box, and attach the printed shipping label, and then call FedEx for a pickup. In order to request a pickup, visit fedex.com, click on Shipping, All Shipping Services, and then Schedule a Pickup. In here you will be able to enter the time, address, and date you want the package picked up. Alternatively, you can also drop it off at any FedEx drop-off boxes or at any FedEx location.